Good morning and welcome to Conversations, Kwentuhan with Director Ramona Diaz. I am Ann Nate, a senior communication student, and I will be your host today. Such an honor and privilege to have you here with us today.
Of course. I came of age in Assumption, in all Assumptions. I was started in Iran, went on Tipolo, and then ended up in Sanlo. So I did all the Assumptions for oh my gosh, for from prep through 12 fourth year. So I know all the Assumptions.
Wow, consistent loyalty
Yeah, of course.
awardee. And it's always exciting for us to invite our old girls back here in Assumption, just to share their lives after years of being out in the world, especially for me now that I'm also a graduating student. So it just really sparks a lot of inspiration to hear stories from you. And we all know you now as Director Ramona Diaz. But we also want to know how you were back then when you were still an AC student. Can you give us a glimpse of that life and maybe share with us your favorite memories in Assumption?
Gosh, like I said, I came of age there. It was very formative in all ways. All my best friends when I go to the Philippines are still from my Assumption days. I have a group of really good friends who I can count on no matter what. And we share collective memory of Assumption, right? And we laugh at the same things and laugh at crazy things we did in Assumption that no one would ever understand, right? So it's in my memory, it's a very comforting thought.
Speaking of student life, we have graduating students, including myself, who are navigating our way to the real world. And some of us are also very much interested in pursuing a career in filmmaking, just like you. But for you, back when you were still in college or when you were still in Assumption, was filmmaking a career that you've always wanted to pursue?
I wouldn't say it was like something I thought of then, right? I was enamored of photography for sure. And my dad gave me my first camera, a Canon AE1. I remember that so well. And coming from my dad, that was such encouragement. I felt like it was like, permission to take this kind of seriously. I remember that was the first thing. That was my first love of the frame, the image. Alliance Francaise had a film series. Every month they would show a film. And I remember having to ask permission to go to Alliance Francaise to go to a film. And I would go with like a chaperone because no friend would want to come with me to a French film at Alliance Francaise. So I would go by myself. And I remember this one film. It was by Francois Truffaut, and it was called Day for Night. And Day for Night, if you don't know it, it's not really one of his most arty films. It's actually a very commercial film considering it's Truffaut, right? But the film is a film within a film. So the film is a story about making a film. And I just found it so fascinating that grown-ups were paid to do this, right? It seemed like camp for grown-ups. I'm like, I want to do that. And I want to be Francois Truffaut. I just loved films. I love going to films. And the best film school is watching films. I still believe that. And it was only, I think, when I got to Emerson that I met a teacher. And that's why teachers are so important. I met a teacher, Inga Karetnikova. I will always remember her because she sparked my love for film. She, through her eyes, I understood film language and I understood how to craft a story. But let me rewind. Like in high school, my love of story was sparked by Miss Ansaldo. I remember we had to write this in this sort of like diary. And then we did like reaction essays to every mythology we read, every piece. And we would write, and she would take it and do copious notes. Like she would really read it. That's how it was. And before I knew it, I was very involved in fiction filmmaking. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And Emerson had a great internship program that connected us to people in Hollywood, people in Los Angeles, and I interned for MTM Productions at that time toward my junior year, and I ended up working for Remington Steele. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was with Pierce Brosnan back in the day. I'm dating myself here, but that was my first job out of college. It was this job in television, and it was sort of crazy. And I thought, wow, all jobs are like this because they fed you at every point. Like if you got there early enough, you could go to breakfast on set. Then lunch was always brought in. And if you stayed beyond 6, they would order you dinner, right? So everyone stayed at 6:01, all the assistants, all the production assistants, and writer's assistant. I was a writer's assistant then. We would all stay at 6:01 and order dinner and then take it home. But then I did that until the show was canceled. Not canceled. Pierce quit the show to be Bond. He wanted to be Bond. He quit the show, and I think everyone felt that they had done enough of the show. You know, series television gets very rote and old at some point, and then the revolution happened. '86 happened. That was close to when Steele ended. And I decided to come back to Manila for a year. I thought I was going to stay for a year. I ended up staying for 4 or 5 years. And then I did a show there. I did Apple Pie Pati sa Tibapa with Monique Villonco. And that was when my love for the documentary form was born, because there were so many stories being told after years of suppression. So many people were telling stories, right? And that's when I thought, wow, it's interesting. Real people are interesting. And then I decided to go back to Stanford to go back to really learn the craft of documentary, because I felt like I'd hit the wall in Manila. So I went back. So that was it. And then I made Imelda right out of Stanford. But that was it. It was a slow process, of finding the documentary form and really being and really falling in love with it, falling in love with the process. I'm all about process, really.
Actually, as you were sharing the whole story of all of your experiences, I really felt the excitement. And I'm sure everyone here in the room really felt your excitement and your love for it. It really transpired and really translated. Even online, we can feel it. And it makes us feel more alive and more connected. And so that was really a point in your life that made you realize what you wanted. I mean, thanks to those experiences and the people that shaped and influenced you. So that was the what. But then at this point in your career, you've already worked on numerous projects with different people. Was there ever a point that made you realize why you're doing what you're doing? Or is there like a moment where you said to yourself, this is why I do filmmaking?
I can't pinpoint to a time and place, because every project is different. Every project brings its challenges, and I describe it as like it's like a startup. Every film is a startup, right? It's like starting a new business, because you're dealing with different people. I deal with the same crew, but different people you're filming. But there really isn't. What really sparks me, what I enjoy most, is production, is being out on the field and running after the story. Not running after the story, but trying to figure out what the story is. Because I usually start with exploration. I never know truly what the story is. I know, like with Imelda, of course I knew. I mean, it was Imelda, but I had no idea how that was ever gonna I didn't know what it was going to look like, right? I had an idea in my head, which is very different from what it eventually became, because Imelda was nowhere like I had imagined her, right? So, and the same with Maria, the same with I started out as wanting to do the drug war, and it pivoted to Maria. So they're really explorations for me, and those explorations are what I find really fun about the process, because it is discovery. And I go a lot with my gut, that my gut tells me that this is a story I should be telling. Sometimes I'm wrong. Oftentimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. So I can't really pinpoint, but I love the process. I love the process of filming and finding those golden moments and getting to know the people I'm filming with, because that's really interesting as well. Because I always say that my film is a product of my relationship with the people I film, right? So, because there has to be a lot of trust, a lot of trust in the room in order for me to make my films.
You keep mentioning about the process and how it's not really complete until it's, finished. And it's really a work in progress as you go into the stories. And part of storytelling is, I guess, our values. So in Assumption, we are women of faith and women of action. So what values exactly did you learn in school that perhaps that you still use today in your storytelling?
Oh my gosh, honesty, right? Transparency. I mean, so because I make documentary films, it's really important to be right. I mean, to be not right, but not even truthful, but they can't catch you in a lie in documentaries, because if they do, then everything else falls apart. And I'm talking and truth, and I'm not talking factual truth, just emotional truth, right? Once you hit the emotional truth of the person you're following, then everything else guides you. So I think some kind of honesty and trust. The people I film with, my crew, have to trust me, especially when it gets dangerous. I have to be very transparent with them. The lines of communication have to be open all the time. So trust and honesty and some kind of transparency, because it's hard enough as it is. So anything less than that, I think, will be just impossible.
How exactly do we access the emotional aspect just to get that sort of truth with other people?
It really is truly being around. Like my idea is always to be the first in the room and the last one to leave. When you're able to spend time in a place with the person you're filming and you don't need to say anything, you've hit something, right? They're no longer sort of trying to fill the vacuum. So you've hit some kind of comfort on their part. It's really about them being comfortable, but it's also not about trying to get them to behave badly, right? It's not about that. So I always say, first of all, I'm not press. So I'm not about the news tonight. Nothing I filmed today will be on the news this evening. It will probably be in a film a year from now. I'm not reality television. It is not about the gotcha moment. I'm here to I'm really interested in how you live your life, how you conduct yourself, right? I mean, truly what I'm interested in is behavior. I'm interested in behavior, and to get real behavior, you have to just hang out. And so in a way, you really have to like the people you're filming. I do. I always say there's a kind of falling in love with the people you film.
It seems as though all of the documentaries that you've made already, it seems as though life was just unfolding beyond the lens. So it just goes on as you talk to them, as you continue sharing experiences with them. But then what made you take that leap of faith under uncertainty? Because you're not sure about where the story's going or if it's going to be even successful or whatnot. So how did you take that leap of faith?
I always say if I knew how it ended, I would be doing fiction, right? The reason I do nonfiction is I like that sort of uncertainty. But I also pick people who are sort of at a very important time in their lives, right? So, for example, Imelda had just come home and she was running for office. She was running for president. Our kids were running for I think, governor of Ilocos. So they were just coming home. It was just this coming back to the country. Motherland, they had just given birth, right? So it's always at this pivotal moment in their lives. The teachers, they were new to Manila. Arnel, he was just discovering fame, right? He was just becoming famous in front of the lens. And that's, to me, is fascinating. How do you deal with that? And Maria, she kept getting arrested, right? I mean, who knew she'd keep getting arrested? So I always say what's good for the film, which is, storytelling, conflict's good because it's an engine that pushes your narrative along. What's good for the film may not necessarily be good for the people you're filming, right? Like, I don't wish Maria to get arrested, but it's good for the film if Maria's arrested because there is a conflict. But then I've become her friend. So there's this constant tension of being filmmaker and friend, right? As a friend, no, please don't get arrested again. But then when she gets arrested, I'm like, okay, good for the film. Like, say Arnell, if he had not succeeded, that's a whole other film. And that would be an interesting film because it's interesting to see people pick themselves up from failure. Failure is such a great teacher, right? So if he had failed, what would he have done? And that would have been a really interesting film as well, different. But in this case, he succeeded. So I have a Cinderella story. But if I didn't have a Cinderella story, that would have been interesting as well. Equally interesting, if not more so, maybe as a story, but equally interesting. So failure and success, they're both, I'm willing to go either way.
How do you define success and what makes your work successful?
Well, how do I define success? If it's seen by a lot of people, I mean, that is the point, right? A lot of eyes. I mean, I don't make films to be put in a cupboard somewhere. I make films so people can see it. So what I do really is it's very specific, my films. They're very specifically Filipino. But what I do is I try to transcend the specificity and make it more universal. That's why that's the only way it will really resonate. Films need to be seen and experienced.
What inspires you and keeps you going?
What inspires? Sometimes it's just after this film, I thought I was going to stop. I thought I was going to spend time doing a fiction because I'm writing a fiction, my first fiction. I thought I was going to do that, but then elections, right? But then Lenny Robredo and her radical love. And then Bongbong Marcos. I mean, I can't avert my gaze. I can't help myself, right? And those things are important. And I think it's important to bear witness for history, it's important to be there and bear witness. And that's what inspires me. I like figuring out what's going to happen. And I can't help myself because I can't help myself. And then, because I'm at this stage in my career, I just say, I want to do this. And they said, okay, you can go see if it's there, see if there's a story there. And I'm lucky enough now that I'm in that, stage in my career that I can do that.
That sounds really exciting. I mean, the whole process of storytelling and creating a story. And this is actually a personal question, especially that I'm also a graduating student. So what advice can you give to people like me, graduating students, or just students in general in, taking risks, like how you do it? What advice would you give our students?
It's a great time to be, for me. I'm gonna talk about filmmaking, right? Because it's what I know. So it is a great time to be a storyteller because there's so very many avenues in which to put your story out there. Also, it's a great time to be a filmmaker because you have access to equipment that you've never had before. You can film something on your phone, for heaven's sakes, right? And it's getting better and better and better. So it's easy to just pick it up and go and do something. So I think it's very exciting that way. It's very, the access to equipment is very democratizing, which is great. But I think it's more important to really know what you want to say, right? Or more than say, you have to know what it is, where you are in the world. What do you want to show people? What do you want to say in your work? That's key. That's important. You have to think, is it important? Is it unique? What am I really wanting to impart? And I'm not talking messages, right? Because I think messages, that's not what film does best. The film gives experiences, and that's what it does best. So what experience do you want to show your audience? What do you show that's so wonderful that you get so excited that you got to film it and show people, right? And you have to be very clear in representation. What are you putting out there for you? I mean, not for anyone else, for you, because that'll guide you in the filmmaking. That'll guide you in the storytelling. So you have to be very, very clear on what it is why it is you want to do it, and what you want to impart, what experience you want to impart. Because it's not easy to make a film. No, it isn't. But because of access to all the technology, it seems easy. But you have to have clarity. It's clarity of thought, really. That's key.
It's been a really great experience getting to know you more and knowing what you do and how you do it and why you do it. And of course, you've been so inspiring for all of us here. But we also have other people from the community who are hoping to get to know you more. So I'll ask questions from them. So here we have a question from one of our teachers. Very simple question. Okay, why do you tell stories?
Why do I tell stories? Because I don't know what else will I do. Someone really close to me said, you are the most highly educated, unemployable person I know. Because I can't be employed with someone else. I do documentary films, right? And I can't help it. I like stories. I'm drawn to stories, but more than stories, I'm drawn to behavior. I like observing behavior. I like seeing how people react in times of stress, in times of joy, in times of success and failure. How do they comport themselves? To me, it's such a big lesson for my life too. So I think I was a shy person. I was an introvert growing up. I was. So to me, observation was really my go-to. I love observing people. And now that I'm in between, I go back and forth to the Philippines, right? I'm in between the US and the Philippines. And it gives me such a great observational point, because when I get to the Philippines, I can still be an outsider looking in, right? And here I can totally be an outsider looking in. And I like that vantage point. So more than storytelling, I'm drawn to how people behave in the world. And that's what I like showing people. And that it's wrapped around story to make it accessible is, I think, important. So people will watch your film. I mean, right? I mean, there's so many, very many ways to make films, even documentaries. You don't necessarily have to have a 3-story structure. You don't necessarily have to have a story at all, right? It can be just a pure visual poetry, right? It can be a theme. Any which way you want to impart what moves you. And what moves me is behavior, really observing people.
It's really surprising for us to know that you were shy and introverted, because based on your films, your documentaries,
Yeah.
they're all really bold and fearless, which doesn't even show a hint of shyness. But yeah, it's been
I
really
think
great.
not shyness, just introverted, right?
Oh, just
I think I've
introverted.
always been an introvert, and so that's not an extrovert. I wasn't. I wouldn't necessarily be so excited to go to a party. I wasn't that kind of person, right? I didn't get my energy from that. That's why, right now my life is a lot of travel, a lot of shooting here and there. And that's why I relish coming home, because that's where I get my re-energized, like really just being here and like by myself. I know
Yeah.
it sounds so selfish, but really just getting energy from introspection, from thinking about life. So that's what I mean. I didn't get my energy from other people necessarily, right? But I get inspiration from them. But to re-energize, it's like really, it's to me, solitude is really important in order to think about in order to write. I write a lot, right? So solitude to me, that's very key. And I think that's kind of a introvertedness, you know.
So that's how you get refreshed, by getting your alone time, your me
Yes.
time. How exactly do you spend your alone time or your me time? We're just curious here.
No, I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of reading, and I do a lot of watching films. I catch up. So lately, like, right, I was just this whole weekend, like I was just in Oslo for the Peace Prize, right? And I'm a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and we just voted on films this last weekend, and I had to catch up, right? So I had to watch all these films like nonstop. To me, it was heaven, right? I mean, to have an excuse to not do anything else but watch films, I love that. Or I love just reading books, right? Just staying. And so my daughter and I have this thing. My daughter, she's 24. We're rereading the canon, right? We choose a book and we read it at the same time. A book she's already read, a book I've already read. And then we get together and we discuss it. It's also our way of being in touch constantly, because I travel a lot and she has her own life. So it's our way of being in touch, and we discuss the books. So it's like our own private book club. But then it forces me to like really read it. Like right now we're doing Middlemarch, right? Long book. Oh my God. So, and now she's ahead of me. So I just love reading and writing, and for that you need time and space and quiet. I think you need, just silence. I love silence.
So, what is the role of your faith in the process of creating documentaries?
Oh my God. Like faith in God, faith in like that's tough. That's a tough question. What is the role of my faith in my, to me, it always goes back to the golden rule, right? Do unto others what you want them to do unto you, right? It's like do good and just do good. Just be honest with yourself, be honest with others, the way you treat them, be respectful.
Okay, we have one last question from a dear mother. What is the role of your family in your filmmaking career?
My family, my real family, my extended family. Which family? I have many, like families can be different, right? I have my documentary family, I have my real family, I have my Assumption family, my Assumption friends are family, right? So which one? I mean, they all play a role, because I think community is so important in order to do work, especially film. It's such a collaborative medium. So I think community is important. Family is important to just give you rest, right? To know that they're there no matter what, they will be there. Like my family, my siblings. I have I had to stop. I have 5 siblings, I have 5 sisters, and they're always my biggest cheerleaders. They are, and it's so nice. No matter what I do, they're like cheering me on, which is needed. So it's so great. And then of course my Assumption friends are like they're as close to me as my sisters. They really are. There are like 10 of us who travel together, who the minute I land in Manila, they're calling me now, right? You want to have breakfast? I like, because they lure me to like Pinoy breakfast. I have breakfast for you. And then to know that when I'm there, they're there, right? It's the people that if you fall ill, who do you want to be around, right? Who do you want around you if you fall ill? That's the real test. Who's going to have your back? So it's key. It's so important, especially especially my Assumption friends are very, very dear to me, and they know it. They know they are right. I always tell them, if I get sick, will you come? They go, we'll throw a party around your bed. I'm like, well, don't be too happy that I'm sick, but so it's really, really important. The love of family and friends is so key.
Thank you so much. I feel so inspired. I'm sure everyone else in the room also is.
I'm sorry for going on and on. I'm sorry for going on. I know you have to stop me. Stop me.
we love making kwentuhan and just having conversations with you here. So love and gratitude to you, Miss Ramona, for sharing all of your experiences. And of course, we would like to take this time to thank each and every one of you for making today's conversation possible. We hope that everyone gained new knowledge from today's Kwentuhan, and of course, we hope that it continues to inspire everyone as we pursue our dream of creating, narrating, and documenting relevant stories in the future. And with that, once again, I am Ann Nate, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next conversations. Thank you and good day.